Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Professor Ming's Strategic Insights. In our previous programs, we shared with you our views of how the United States and Communist China are caught in a new Cold War, and we analyzed how the Cold War began because of the communist ideology, and how this communist ideology is transferred to each and every Communist Party member through their indoctrination process. And all these sound very theoretical and even abstract. I know that. So today I'm going to talk about something more concrete or even more down-to-earth things. Again, you don't have to be an expert. Just by glancing through the headlines of the news about China in recent years, you'll notice one thing. China has frequently caught in frictions or skirmishes or even conflict with many countries in the world. Just for the past 3-4 years, they've been having trouble with the United Kingdom, Italy, Australia, the Czech Republic, Lithuania, Japan, South Korea, Sweden, India, and Canada. Very recently, or as of now, this moment, right this moment, they're having trouble with the Philippines. One of the Chinese Coast Guard ships collided into Philippine ships. They are having a dispute over the so-called Second Thomas Shoal. And the collision was so bad that some Filipinos were injured. And the incident just got into negotiation between two sides. And we don't know the outcome yet. And as for Taiwan, they sent jet fighters, bombers, and drones into our airspace. They sent warships, all kinds of warships, into our waters. Not to mention they just seized one of our ships, our fishing ships, together with the fishermen. And there's no sign of release yet. And of course, let's not forget about the United States, the main target of their so-called wolf warrior diplomacy. The Chinese communists accuse or attack the United States almost daily. And they're engaging in a tit-for-tat warfare in fields like trade, diplomacy, technology, and finance. And the Chinese communists are building up their army, their navy, their air force, and their rocket force, or so-called missile forces, with the United States as its opposing force. So this is what they called the wolf warrior diplomacy. And it is reported about 10 years ago, Xi Jinping once instructed his diplomats and telling them, you must dare to pull out your swords. That's a common Chinese expression, meaning you have to be very tough. So as we can see now, many Chinese diplomats, they act assertively and even aggressively. They challenge or they oppose those universal values such as democracy, freedom, human rights, and rule of law. I guess one vivid example will be last year, March 2023. When Xi Jinping visited Moscow. After they finished the visit, Putin walked Xi Jinping out of the building. The minute when they stepped out of the building, Xi Jinping stopped and turned around and talked to Putin. He told Putin, we are facing a change of international order or the international politics for 100 years. Let's work together for it, or let's promote it. And Putin said, I agree. So that's one telling example of how they treat or how they conduct the so-called wolf warrior diplomacy. And that's the external part. Domestically, if you pay a little attention to the Chinese news, you'll notice one thing. They've been cracking down harshly on privately owned businesses, short SPOB, in contrast to state-owned enterprises, SOE. I remember very clearly, back in the year 2018, Xi Jinping was attending a meeting with the POBs. He said it very clearly. For the past 30-40 years, the POBs in China has made major contributions to China's economy. For instance, the POBs has created more than 50% of the tax collected, 60% of China's GDP, 70% of the technological innovation, 80% of the township employment, and 90% of the number of the enterprises or businesses. So if you want to improve China's economy, the right thing or the only right thing to do is to pave way for the POBs, to lift all the bans and barriers on their road and try to shrink the state-owned enterprises so that you can have a better economy. But he did quite the opposite. And second case is Hong Kong. Hong Kong has been a financial center, not only for China, but also for Asia or even for the world. But beginning in the middle of 2019, if you still remember it, they abruptly denied the one country, two systems in Hong Kong. They cracked down harshly on the Hong Kong citizens who begged for more liberty and more freedom in the realm of politics. They were oppressed, arrested, sentenced to jail, or even killed. So what comes after that is a huge outflow of talents, money, and businesses from Hong Kong. Hong Kong, this previous international financial center, has become a dead city in southern China. And the third example is, of course, the COVID-19 case. In addition to the seemingly endless testing, they implemented very harsh quarantine to the point of suffocating the POBs or the small businesses. So since then, Chinese production, foreign trade, foreign exchange reserves have shrank sharply, and their economy is going down the drain. So upon hearing all these, you may wonder, do they really have a master plan, or do they have a grand strategy? Or do they have a grand strategy behind all these? Let me tell you, the answer is yes. They are preparing for war. But talking about this war, it has two aspects: a defensive aspect and an offensive aspect. On the defensive side, the Communist China is alarmed to find out that it has been isolated internationally. It's been caught in a circle of containment with Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, Australia, and sometimes India as part of the effort, and of course, led by the United States. In addition, Quad, Five Eyes, G7, EU, NATO, and Taiwan may be part of the whole program. So if you realize that you're caught in such a dilemma, the first reaction is of course fear. You're afraid that people might strike you first. After all, there are so many people against you in the world. So in response, Xi Jinping told his diplomats to talk tough and to act tough and dare to pull out your swords. That's a defensive gesture. The other side of the coin is, of course, the offensive side. You may wonder, how could that be possible? Given China is caught in international isolation, as you just depicted, and is also experiencing internal instability, it is facing economic trouble, social challenge, and political challenge, how could he still be thinking about offensive or war against other countries? Let's not underestimate them. They do have their ambition. I'm not saying they're preparing for a war tomorrow. What I'm saying is Xi Jinping is instructing his generals to make best preparations just in case we may have to launch a war in the near future. We may think they're crazy, but they don't think so. Let me go back to this diagram. Remember this one? Remember this so-called world proletarian revolution? How this concept evolved through times? For Marx, it was a class struggle. For Lenin, it's a war. For Stalin, it's a world war between two camps. For Mao Zedong, it's a world war between two camps with atomic weapons. And now it's Xi Jinping's turn. So that's the ideological origin of their belief. And secondly, they're perhaps deceived by their own slogan, by their propaganda slogan. they've been saying that the East is rising and the West is declining. In other words, they're saying China or Communist China is rising and the United States is declining. You think it's just sheer slogan or misperception? Not really. They think they have concrete evidence or concrete proof for that. Back in 2019 and 2020, as COVID-19 hits the world, the United States experiencing heavy casualties. And in the eyes of the Chinese communists, the United States is either mismanaging the COVID or the United States is simply incompetent. Anyway, that's the first sign of the United States decline. The second sign in their eyes is the presidential election back in 2020 and the ensuing social disruption, the chaos and the deepening social cleavages ever since. And the third sign is the United States withdrawal from Afghanistan in the year 2020, to be exact, August 2020. In the withdrawal, the United States left behind a huge amount of weapons, ammunition, and gears, and all kinds of things. And in the eyes of the Chinese communists, it's not only embarrassing, it's a sure sign of the United States' decline. Of course, there are many other issues we can raise, but in the eyes of the Chinese communists, these three are the unmistakable signs of the decline of the United States. And as they see it, the window of opportunity is approaching again. Yes, your guess is right. The United States is having another presidential election in this coming November. And this is the window of opportunity they've been waiting for. They think the United States will be caught in chaos, disruption, or even a social deep cleavage, or even a civil war, perhaps. And that's a good opportunity for them to take over Taiwan, or even defeat the United States to become the only hegemon in the world. So that's what they've been doing, domestically and externally, in preparation for war, either on the defensive side or on the offensive side. In our eyes, they may be crazy, but let me remind you, they're ideologues. They've been indoctrinated by their own communist ideology. They believe in the so-called world proletarian revolution, be that made through the form of a class struggle, a world war, or a war with unrestricted bounds, what they call unrestricted warfare, or warfare without bounds. That's something we're going to talk about in later programs. So this is what I want to tell you today. They're preparing for war. That's why they behave so strangely, either domestically or externally. I hope you liked today's program, and I'll see you next time.